Hey guys, good to see you again. We finished chapter 15 yesterday, and Frank was just about ready to shoot an arrow when Pi, the Indian, came running up and said, "No shoot, no shoot." But he hadn't said why yet. You guys want to know why? I don't know, I haven't read the story yet. Let's find out. Better put on some glasses first. You guys wear glasses? I know some of you do. Glasses are pretty cool, huh? Alright. Chapter 16, Flash Flood. Flash Flood. That sounds scary. Pi's command not to let the arrow fly was followed by a fearful snorting and bellowing. Frank turned. A mad bull, which had jumped the fence of a shipping pen, was charging directly at him and the other boys. Quick as lightning, Pi grabbed the bow and arrow from Frank's hands. With one deft, continuous movement, he strung the shaft, drew the bowstring, and let the arrow fly straight at the bull. The blunt arrow caught the bull right between the eyes, right there. Poing! He went down in a heap at Pi's feet, stunned by the crashing blow. "Wow," Joe exclaimed, "that was some shot." "You saved our lives," Chet stuttered. Frank was not so jubilant as the others. True, he was thankful that the arrow had found its mark, but the episode raised a serious doubt in his mind about Pi. Could the apparently friendly Indian be the one who had shot the white feathered arrows? Pi seemed innocent enough, but Frank was determined to be wary. The Indian looked sheepish as he handed the bow back to Frank. "Pi not know he can shoot straight anymore," he said, grinning. "You look as if you'd had plenty of practice recently," Frank commented. Pi looked at the boy in surprise. "I know shoot since boy." Then suddenly he realized what Frank might mean. "No shoot arrow in woods," he said. "Pi no try to kill you." "That's right," Joe spoke up. "Pi was with me every moment on our ride." "I'm sorry I doubted you, Pi," Frank said in an apology. One of the men, who was preparing to drag the bull away, looked up. "What are you all talking about?" he asked in alarm. Before the Hardys could stop Pi, the little Indian excitedly told what had happened to Frank in the woods. The cowboys stared in amazement, then turned their eyes on Joe. "I see what you were driving at yesterday," one of the men said. "I sure won't show my face in the North Woods." As the Hardys and Chet said goodnight and walked off toward the ranch house, Frank remarked, "We didn't learn much, but I'd like to bet if those woods have anything to do with the missing cowboys, the rest of the men will stay away from them." "Sure," said Chet. "And now that you fellows have no more work to do here, we can just have fun." "What do you suggest, Chet?" asked Joe with a wink at Frank. "A little rope work to snare Arrow Charlie? Or..." "Golly," the boy sighed. "You fellows remember too much. Okay, I'll help you track him down, but don't ask me to hunt for anybody in the North Woods." Next morning, the Hardys would have liked to take Pi and Terry and follow the trail of the mysterious archer in the woods, but Hank said gruffly that all his men had to ride fence. The only concession he would make was to permit the visitors to go along with their favorite cowboys. "We'll meet you at the corral," Terry said. Pi picked out good ponies for the boys. Frank and Joe mounted quickly as Frank struggled to his seat. Then the 5 riders set off at the tireless trot of the western range. They had not gone far before Terry reached to the left side of his saddle, under his rope and pulled out a little stringed instrument. "What's that?" Frank said in surprise. "Why, that's my range guitar," Terry smiled. "Regular one's kind of big to tote on horseback. I made this here little fella myself." The boys marveled at the tiny guitar. Terry strummed out a melody which kept time with the rhythmic cadence of the trotting pony. They rode on for several miles, the steady clop-clop of the horses and the rising dust beneath their hoofs almost putting Chet to sleep. Finally, the men's checkup of the cattle brought them not far away from the woods where the arrows nearly hit Frank. Suddenly, the boy reined in his horse. "What's that sound?" he asked. "You got good ears," Terry replied. "It's just a bawling doggy lost in the woods. Want to give him a hand?" Pie broke his silence. "Maybe bad men there," he warned. "Me listen." The Indian dismounted and put his ear to the ground. "Hear nothing," he said. Frank turned his mount into the woods, heading toward the cry of the calf. "I'll come right back," he called. The boy rode 100 yards, then halted to listen. The bawling of the doggy had ceased, but as Frank sat listening, he spotted something that made his heart leap. At some distance ahead, mounted on a white-faced sorrel in the shadow of a big tree, sat a cowboy. His big Stetson was pulled low over his face, entirely concealing it in the shade of the wide brim. Frank quelled his first impulse to ride up to the man. Recalling his father's warning and sure the cowboy was not from Crowhead, he turned his horse around quickly, hurriedly back to his friends, and reported what he had just seen. "Suppose you four fellows surround the woods," Frank said, "while I question the man. If he has no business on Crowhead property, we'll find out what he's up to." With the four at their separate stations, Frank rode into the woods again to the place where he had seen the strange rider. But he was gone. I wonder where he went. The boy made his way to the big tree. The hoofprint of the intruder's horse were in clear view, and something else as well. Excitedly, Frank leapt off the pony and bent to the ground. There lay a package of cigarettes. The package was gaily colored in gold, blue, and yellow. Frank picked it up and read, "Ramiro's Cigarillos, Mexico." At the same moment, he was startled by the sound of hoofbeats near the far end of the woods. Frank sprang to his horse and went in hot pursuit of the unseen rider. In a few minutes, he reached the edge of the woods. He could hear the horses of two of his friends who had taken up the chase. Joe and Terry were racing across the range as if they were trying to break a record. But presently they stopped, wheeled about, and came back. "He got away," Joe reported, as his horse shook foamy perspiration from its neck. A distant cloud of dust attested to the fact that the rider, whoever he was, had made his escape on a speedy horse. Pursuit would be futile. Pie came riding up. "Man go to unhappy ground. Get hurt," he said simply. "Must have wanted to get away bad," Frank remarked. "I sure wish I got a better look at him." "Where's Chet?" Joe asked suddenly. "Where's Chet? I wonder if he disappeared. That would be scary." "Over there," the Indian answered. He pointed to the right of the group, where their friend was seated on his pony, holding both his hands to his eyes. Presently, he trotted over to where the others had stopped. In his right hand, he held binoculars. "I saw him," Chet exclaimed jubilantly. "What did he look like?" Joe asked. "He was the same guy that came to the farm in Bayport and asked me all those questions, Chet declared excitedly. And he was at the El Paso airport, remember? Chet looked admiringly at the binoculars and added, "Good things I asked your cousin Ruth if I could borrow these. Thought I might see something interesting." "You sure did," Joe exclaimed. "Doesn't leave much doubt," Frank said, "that the person who's making the trouble at Crowhead and the one who's in league with the Bayport thieves is the same man." "But what's the connection?" Joe queried. "Do the Arrow cigarette peddlers hide out in this region?" "Maybe they got a cabin in the woods," Chet suggested. "That plane may drop them food." "And Ramiro cigarettes?" Frank replied. He showed his brother and Chet the pack he had found. "We're coming back to investigate this place," Joe determined, and soon. The boys started back to Crowhead. Suddenly, Frank exclaimed, "I didn't get that doggy." The party headed into the woods again, and Frank located the little animal, which had started bawling again. The boy found him mired in a water hole, pulled him out, and let him sprawl across the saddle in front of him. Terry and Pie stared back toward the ranch house with Joe, Frank, and Chet bringing up the rear. The boys, talking over the actions of the man in the woods, found themselves a long distance behind the others. Suddenly, a black cloud appeared on the horizon as if by magic. The next moment, a torrent of rain was lashing the range. "We'd better get over this gully onto higher ground," Frank warned. He led the way into the twisting gulch, on the other side of which was a high knoll. But just when the boys reached the bed of the gully, a terrifying sound reached their ears. It was a swirling, swishing noise, which reached thunderous proportions as it roared down upon the riders. The boys were caught in a flash flood. Oh my goodness. That can kill you. And it's the end of another chapter. Who would have thought? That always stop at the bad spot, huh? All right, guys, that's the end of Chapter 16. Love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.